I think we're ready to begin. So, for those of you who know me, I'm sorry. But for the rest of you, I'm Dr. Michael Eamon. I'm the principal of Catherine Parr Trail College, the college on the hill, which is 60 years old. We're as old as Trent University. So let's hear it for Trail College. And many of our participants here today are members of the college. They're members of all the colleges at Trent University, but Trail has a lot of grad students, and we're really proud about that. What a great evening. 3MT is the high point of the life of Trail College. You know, we know that it's coming every year. In fact, we started 3MT, well, 3MT started back in 2013, and there was a little COVID thing in the middle. So this is the 10th 3MT that we've had. So we had a little bit of a hiatus, but we've been doing this for 10 years. So let's hear it for 3MT for 10 years. I'm very grateful to be with you. It's a great crowd. This is a really good crowd. I know it's difficult. It's right before the holiday weekend, so I appreciate everybody taking time to be here as well. And we have 16 great contestants lined up for you, so this is going to be a great evening. We have esteemed judges, and we'll talk about our judges in a moment. And then you are going to be the big judge as well. We have the Audience Choice Award, where you get to choose what you think is who you think gave the best 3MT presentation today. I'm grateful to be here for many reasons, but I'm also grateful that we are here on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga-Anishinaabe. And you know, for time out of memory, Trail College, and in fact where we are now, because Trail's downtown too, was adjacent to the Grand Portage. Now some of you may know this, but others, this may be something new, that there was a big portage, a Grand Portage, that went all the way from Shamong Lake and went down what is now Shamong Road, and came to right about where Trail College is, near Dublin Street. It hooked around that drumlin and then headed right down to where we are now. And for time out of memory, the Anishinaabe and their ancestors traversed this portage. And you know, a portage, when you know what a portage is. Anyone here from Winnipeg? They call it a portage there. Yeah, Winnipeg, yeah, portage. Well, yeah, but we in the East call it a portage. And if you're on a portage, you're taking your travel between two bodies of water and carrying things. And you know, when you're walking, you're talking. And you're exchanging ideas, and you're airing grievances, but more importantly, you're finding understanding with the people you're with. And so I think there's no better way to honor the traditional teachings of the Anishinaabe than to keep this space here tonight as a space of exchange, of understanding, of communication. So thank you for being here. Maybe next slide, if you don't mind. What is the next? Oh, look at that. It's me, because it's all about me. I'm sorry that I'm there, but I'm wearing this jacket today, and then my wife is like, isn't that the jacket you wore 5 years ago when you did this from the living room? And I'm like, oh, yes, it is. It was 5 years ago that we had to pivot, as they say, and go online. And so 3MT, this is our anniversary. 5 years ago, we did 3MT from my living room. And now, this is so much better, because we couldn't fit all of you in my living room now. This is so much better that we're back live. But it's amazing to think how things have changed. But we have kept this competition going. It started in Australia back in 2008. And Trent University was one of the first adopters in North America, and we've been doing it from 2013 to now. And the winner of tonight, because it is a competition, the winner of tonight gets to go to provincial. So not only is there money to be had for first, second, and third place and the audience choice, the winner gets to go to provincials, all expenses paid. Are you ready for it? In Toronto. Yes, at U of T. Yeah, let's hear it for U of T. Maybe no. Yeah, no, exactly. That's how I feel too. But you know, yes, the winner gets to go to sunny Toronto. So we're all excited about that in May. Next slide. Well, before we start, I just want to say that this is a rarefied environment, and it's so special being a grad student. It's really actually difficult being a grad student, and I don't want to go on too long, but I thought, you know, the best ways to communicate my ideas are through Lego. So I found this. Are you familiar with the Lego grad student? Have you guys seen Lego grad student before? It's a great meme. This one is, here's a grad student experiencing a moment of happiness. The grad student is immediately consumed with guilt. Do you feel that some ways you just can't have fun because you should be doing your thesis or research or something else? Well, I want this to be a guilt-free zone tonight. I want everybody to be happy and enjoy the presentations you're about to have. Here's another one. And this is kind of the philosophy of what we're trying to do here. Describing research to an ever-supportive grandmother, the grad student watches her eager eyes steadily glazing over. Well, We tell our participants here, try to speak like you're going to be speaking to your grandma or your grandfather, or things like, use that kind of language. And I can guarantee you nobody's eyes are going to glaze over for you guys tonight. But being a grad student's tough, and I get that. We all get that. And that's why these celebrations are so special, because it pulls us out of the research, pulls us out of the archives, pulls us out of the lab, and gets us together to share publicly the exciting things. And let me tell you, there's a lot of exciting research happening at Trent University. The motto of Trent University and of Trail College, by the way, is Nunc cognosco ex parte, which means, guys, what does it mean? Now I know in part. That's right. It means that, yeah, you're like, what does that even mean? Well, it means like growing up and learning means that there's more things to learn. And you don't want to be a know-it-all, because know-it-alls are jerks. Nobody wants to be a know-it-all. You want to be a proud know-it-some. You want to know it in part. But more importantly, you want to be able to tell what you know to others. And this is where this crazy thing of the ivory tower comes from. People feel that, oh, it's an echo chamber and they only talk to themselves and who cares what happens at the university. That's crazy talk, because what happens at the university is so important. And it's so important for our new academics, our new scholars coming through, to be able to articulate their research, to make it relevant to the public. Because if we can't do that, we're in trouble. And I think that's why 3MT is also particularly special, because it gives us opportunity for you to practice articulating your research, and for the public to also see the kind of research that is happening at Trent University. And there's a lot of great research. Now, on to the next slide. What are we? All right. I'm going to quickly go through the rules. I'm then going to introduce the judges, and then there's enough of me. We're going to get right into the competition. This is a contest, as it started in Australia, actually at the University of Queensland in 2008, and there are hard and fast rules. So some of the rules are one PowerPoint slide only, no animations or special, I kind of break the rules because I'm not being evaluated today, but no animations or special effects, no additional electronic media are permitted, no additional props are permitted. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes, and that's it. If not, you're disqualified. But don't worry, no one has ever been... Don't do that. You're going to get PTSD before they start. If you hear the bell, that's when you have to stop. And no notes are permitted. There are other things that, before we get to the judging criteria, there are other things you can't do. And you can't sing. And we have one of our judges here today is Peg McCracken from the Peterborough Singers. And I just found, well, and I'll introduce her more formally later, but I just thought, maybe I should audition now for the Singers. This could be a good thing. So I just, I feel like maybe a song could be coming on like, this contest has 180 little seconds, 3 minutes. That's not a lot. 180 seconds to summarize your thesis. We know you can do it, but that's all the time you've got. Thank you. Did I get into the singers? Oh, thanks, Peg. That's great. All right, next, the judging criteria. And pay attention to this because you, too, will be the judge. 1, communication. Was the thesis topic and its significance communicated in a language appropriate to an intelligent, that's you guys, but non-specialist audience? Next. Comprehension. Did the presentation help the audience understand the research? Next. Engagement. Did the oration make the audience want to know more? Those are the 3 pillars that 3MT rests on. And think about that when you choose your audience winner. What are the prizes? Well, let me tell you. We have the School of Graduate Studies Grand Prize, $500, and an all-expenses-paid trip to Toronto. All right, next. We have the Catherine Parr Trail College Prize. I like that one. For second place, $500. We have the Trent Graduate Student Association TGSA Prize for third place, $500. And finally, we have the Office of Research and Innovation Audience Choice Award for $500. So look at all this moolah that is up for grabs. This is serious cash. And so we got to start getting serious here about this competition. Next to, seriously. All right. We have 3 great judges. We're honored here to have 3 wonderful judges here. The first judge would like to introduce to you is Dr. Holger Hintelman, who's our Vice President of Research and Innovation, and it is his office that is providing the money for that Audience Choice Prize. Dr. Holger Hintelman was Dean of Science for a very long time at Trent University, and he has been recently appointed the Interim Vice President of Research and Innovation. He, I think since 2012, you were the first Dean of Sciences, and then just last year, the Interim Vice President of Research. His research focuses on environmental chemistry, mercury cycling, and accumulation. And Holger, thank you so much for being here. Let's hear it for Holger Hintelman. Our second judge is James Lajoie. He's the manager of marketing from the Kawartha Credit Union. James is an accomplished marketing and product management professional with over 15 years of experience spanning financial services, tech, and agency environments. He currently serves as the manager of marketing at the Kawartha Credit Union, where he leads the strategic initiatives for branding, for drive membership engagement, for supporting community involvement in over 23 branches across Central Ontario. He holds an MBA in marketing strategy from Wilfrid Laurier University and a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Guelph. He's an all-around great guy, a proud dad of two. Thank you so much for being here, James. Let's put your hands together for James Lajoie. Our final judge this evening is Peg McCracken. Peggy McCracken's love of music and passion for helping people, and she truly is a passionate person and helps so many people in this community. It truly has been a focus of her life and her career. She is currently the Peterborough Singers business manager and has been so since 2011. But way back in 1991, she and her husband Steve created a family business called B-Flat Music. You may be aware of them, and they serve the needs of schools throughout Kawartha and Durham areas. Peg is involved in so many volunteering in so many parts of the community, but she is also, one of them is she's treasurer and vice chair of EC3, as well as being part of the Peterborough Singers. Peg, thank you so much for being here today. Let's put our hands together for Peggy McCracken. All right, so this is it. We're about to start the competition. So without further ado, I would like to invite up Lakshika Bansal in Environmental and Life Sciences with The Frog Virus Conspiracy, Rewriting the Rules of Cell Death. Lashika.
What if I told you that some of the hardest working pest control agents in the world don't charge salary, take vacation, or go on a strike? You won't find them wearing uniform because they are frogs. Frogs are nature's free pest control agents, and they keep our ecosystem in balance by feeding on insects like mosquitoes. For a quick second, I want you to imagine a world without frogs. More mosquitoes, more diseases, and more problems for us. Not to scare you, but I do want to mention that frogs are actually disappearing very quickly in Ontario. And one of the biggest culprits is frog virus 3. Frog virus 3 was first discovered in Ontario in 2004, and since then, it has caused major die-offs in amphibian population. On the left side of the screen, you'll see two frogs infected by frog virus 3. These two frogs have red skin lesions, and they are going to die within 3 to 5 days after infection. Till date, we don't know what this virus is doing inside frog cells, and that is why we don't have a treatment for frog virus 3 infections. Through my research, I was able to see that a specific frog virus 3 protein significantly affects the cellular levels of a particular protein in amphibian cells. On the right side of the screen, you'll see some cells infected by frog virus 3. Two key proteins are highlighted. Protein A, which is green in color, belongs to frog virus 3, and protein B, which is red in color, naturally exists in frog cells. Remember this, protein B has a defensive role in frog cells, and you'll see that in the presence of protein A, protein B disappears. This suggests that protein A is specifically and actively targeting the defense mechanism in amphibian cells. And I believe that this is the reason why we see major die-offs in amphibian populations, and why we see severe symptoms in frog virus 3. So by studying these interactions between amphibian proteins and between the proteins of frog virus 3, we can actually design treatments that are going to save a lot of amphibians throughout the world. So next time, when you hear a frog croak, consider it as a sign that our ecosystem is in balance. And please remember me, because I'm trying to contribute to maintain that balance. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Wow. That was amazing. This is the hardest position to be in right at the beginning. Thank you so much for that great presentation. Now, this is the part where, while the judges are doing their score, we have a little bit more conversation so you get to know our contestants a little better. And frogs are so interesting, right? Now, but you have another life too. In addition to frogs, you like to sing as well.
I do.
Can you tell me more about your singing career?
I do. I like singing. I was a part of school choir back at home in India. And then when I came here, I recently got an opportunity to join the Mosaic Choir of Peterborough. So I sometimes go there and sing with them. I recently performed with them on Christmas, like last Christmas. It was a good opportunity.
And they're called the Mosaic Choir. That's wonderful.
Right.
What is there a theme to? Why is it the Mosaic Choir? Is there?
It's more like there are different range of singers over there, and like it's all inclusive. So it includes the community, people from different background, and then they have different range of songs that they sing, all cheerful, all happy. So yeah, that's
I love
good
it.
choir.
Oh, I love that. Great. And it gets you away from frog death once in a while. It's nice to have pull you outside of, when you said when you hear frogs croak, it's a good thing. I'm like, is it really? You don't want them to die, but we want to keep our frogs alive. So
Yeah.
let's put your hands together one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, what a great start. Well, then I'm very honored to introduce our next presenter, Emily Michelli, with Colonization Through Anti-Consumption, Reimagining Fish Consumption Guides. Emily.
Today, many people are aware of stolen lands, broken treaties, residential schools, missing and murdered Indigenous women, and other colonial acts in Canada. But not too many people are aware of the colonial harm that fish consumption guides can have on Indigenous communities and how they too can contribute to cultural genocide. For communities who rely on land-based diets to survive, contaminants threaten food security and community well-being. When contaminants like mercury become elevated in fish, government consumption guides or advisories are often created. And this is frequently done without much communication with the communities that are the most impacted. This results in a limited understanding of community fishing practices, which limits fish consumption guides that have considered traditional fishing locations and frequently eaten fish species. This lack of an understanding of community needs also limits knowledge sharing and community involvement, which creates mistrust. On top of that, communities are told not to consume a food item that has been a staple part of their diet and culture for generations. And the only suggested alternatives are grocery store items. And this is an option that pulls people away from their lands and forces them to be more dependent on a colonial system that has already been harming indigeneity for generations. Researchers have also linked worsening Indigenous health after being told not to consume traditional foods and fish consumption guides that only aim to limit fish consumption lead as one of the main culprits. My work in collaboration with Moose Cree First Nation aims to reconstruct fish consumption guides in a way that involves community members throughout the entire process. Multiple knowledges and perspectives were brought together. Community members were trained on sampling protocols and were able to collect fish samples. And mercury was analyzed at culturally important fishing locations. Other species containing fewer levels of mercury in them were also included. Together, we created a blueprint for fish consumption that offers fewer limitations for the Moose Cree community. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Emily. Thank you for expanding our awareness on such an important topic.
I was so nervous I was ready to just walk off the
Oh,
stage.
don't walk right off. Yeah, we got to let the judges right up. But thank you so much. How did you come to this topic? Is this something you've been thinking about for a long time? How did
Well, yeah, ever since I was a child, I've always been like really into the environment and always wanted to do something to protect it. But as I grew up, I became more aware of like the fact that all these environmental injustices have been happening. So, for example, like what happened in Wet'suwet'en territory a couple years ago. And yeah, I really just like wanted to do something meaningful with my life and thought that this would be a great opportunity to step into that.
No, it's so great to be able to use your research and then have really this kind of practical outreach with it. You also you're an advocate for snakes and insects. I think you said something that people, they're misunderstood. So you help people understand the creepy crawlies a little
Yes,
better.
I do.
Okay.
I do a lot of macro photography, which I hope helps people to see the beauty of these creatures that are very misunderstood.
So if I need like a spider or bug portrait, you're the person to get it from?
Absolutely.
Love it. Let's put our hands together again for Emily. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Cassandra Kirado in Lost in Thoughts, the impact of executive functioning on mindfulness practices. Cassandra.
Have you ever been so stressed that your entire body was just drained? Well, I have. And I remember it very clearly as I experienced burnout for the first time in the second year of my undergraduate degree. Much like this person here and many other post-secondary students, I was faced with what seemed to be an endless amount of challenges as I tried to manage my new academic, social, and financial responsibilities. Now, my burnout story ends with me reaching a point where I was no longer functioning properly due to the prolonged stress that I was experiencing. And as a result, one morning when I went to go make my toast for breakfast, instead of walking to the toaster, I mistakenly went to the kitchen sink, turned on the tap, and just about washed a slice of bread at 8 o'clock in the morning before I realized what I was doing. Now, I'm not saying that all post-secondary students are out here washing bread, but I am saying that they experience extensive amounts of stress, which has implications on their overall health and well-being. In fact, on-campus mental health resources and counseling services themselves are overwhelmed by the rising number of students in need of mental health support, thus making it so crucial that other forms of mental health resources are explored to ensure students are well supported. Previous research has supported the use of mindfulness practices as a strategy for post-secondary students to improve their physical, mental, and emotional health. Yet, overall, mindfulness practices are often still underutilized as a coping tool, and it seems as though they may not work to the same extent for everyone. But why? Well, mindfulness involves bringing your full attention to all present moment thoughts, sensations, and experiences in a non-judgmental and accepting way, which can then be practiced through guided meditations and focused breathing. Now, based on what we know about mental health, people that experience anxiety and depression, for example, tend to also struggle with executive functioning, which includes things like having difficulty paying attention and controlling intrusive thoughts. And so consequently, some research does suggest that individuals with mental health concerns are struggling to maintain their attention during their mindfulness practice, which then hinders their opportunity of improved well-being. Therefore, the goal of my research is to understand how one's current abilities in executive functioning impacts their experience with mindfulness. Is someone that struggles with executive functioning able to maintain their practice long enough to actually experience those known benefits? Or do the cognitive distractions they have decrease their opportunity to do so? Through understanding the impact that executive functioning has on mindfulness practices, we can better understand why they're underutilized, and we can offer students greater insight on effective coping strategies to help improve their well-being. Because their post-secondary education should be a time to grow and flourish, and not so stressful they end up washing their breakfast.
Wow, that's amazing. You may not realize this, there's a clock here, and that clock was like right to 2 seconds, and you nailed it, So that's great. I'm so glad that you did. Tell us a little more about yourself. You practice what you preach, right? You've worked with Kids Help Phone. You help. Tell us more about some of the things you do outside of the class.
Yeah, so my research, as you kind of could tell, it's kind of a combination of mindfulness and mental health. And outside of that, I practice that as well, as you mentioned. So I volunteer with Kids Help Phone as a crisis responder, and I've been doing that for about 2 years now. As well, I also practice my own mindfulness outside of that. I grew up with my grandma owning a yoga studio and a wellness center, so I've been exposed to these sorts of practices my whole life, and I've really resonated and connected with them. But then on the flip side, I've noticed that my family members and my friends, they don't have that same experience. So that alone kind of sparked my interest in this field of why, what's the underlying mechanism there.
And that's so wonderful. It's great to have that. Have a grandma that had a yoga studio. That is really cool. Where do you want to go with this? What's the next step for you? Or is this too soon to ask?
No, that's a great
Sorry, too
question.
soon.
No, the next step for me is, this is just the first step, obviously, but moving on forward, my end goal is to be a youth counselor and psychotherapist. So emphasizing mental health, creating space for people, finding those effective coping strategies at any age, post-secondary, children, adults, and just helping to support people and give them the space to feel heard.
That's absolutely wonderful. Let's put your hands together. Thank you, and good luck as
Thank
you go
you.
down that path.
Thank you.
Thanks again. And now it's time for Lisa Ditchen in our interdisciplinary social research program with Cities for 7 Generations. Lisa.
Ani Buzu Kwekwe Lisa Nyangyats. Thank you for the introduction. And I'd like to add that I'm a student and a nonprofit expert, an artist and a scientist, and a mom and someone's child. So let's start off with the image on the top. What are some words that you might use to describe it? Maybe cold, dirty, unsafe. What words did you think of? Now have a look at the image on the bottom. It's the same place, but at a different time. Would you use the same words to describe this image? My research is called Cities for 7 Generations, but what does that mean? 7 Generations is a way of thinking that broadly represents Indigenous worldviews here on Turtle Island and globally. It has many different nuanced interpretations, but the essential concept is that we must make decisions that are good for us now, as well as good for future generations, and that those decisions must be holistic and take into account all living things, earth, air, fire, water, animals, plants, and people, because we're all connected as one living ecosystem. So my research asks, what if we took 7 generations thinking and applied it to city building? What if all policies, governance structures, and shared city spaces were developed with 7 generations in mind? Could we create amazing cities? So I took 3 things and combined them. First, 7 generations thinking. Second, the Mi'kmaq Nation's approach to natural resource management. And third, I expanded what we consider to be resources, typically oil or natural gas, to include shared city spaces like parks and libraries. And through Indigenous consultation and interdisciplinary approaches, I created a prototype framework that anyone can use to look at their own perspective through the worldview of 7 generations. So let's return to those images. I could describe them from a 7 generations perspective, and I might use words like resilient, defiant, activist, or community. But how could I say that? So in the same way that I can be a mom and a child, a student and an expert, this place can be different things if you look at it from different perspectives. The next stage of my research will validate this model with Indigenous and non-Indigenous city building experts. We'll look at 1 or 2 policies in the City of Toronto, and through sharing circles, research conversations, and interdisciplinary methods, we will create a Cities for 7 Generations pilot that will be used to inform cities policy development in Toronto. So let's take one last look at that slide. And what if I told you this was the start of an amazing city? Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
I was going to say, I have your bio here, and it had all the different, your mom and balancing many things, but you said it already. But
Yeah.
So how do you do it? How do you balance all these things and school at the same time?
That's like the hardest question ever. Honestly, you just do what you love. And if you do what you love, you have time for it.
No, that's great. And I also love what you do, in particular, taking Haudenosaunee knowledge, Mi'kmaq knowledge, and finding kind of places where they overlap. And that was that how difficult was that? Has that been a very intricate process, or was it quite easy for you to make those connections?
So there's two things. One is I have a number of advisors, and so I rely on sort of guidance through them. And then I also have started this work. I did it when I worked in nonprofit, actually, and I worked within Indigenous organizations and with community. And so in some ways, it's an extension of that. So that helped with the analysis. And then I guess the third part is that's my brain, the way my brain works. So it just kind of like compiles and then
that's
puts
amazing.
everything
You're in the
together.
right place at the right time and doing the right thing.
yeah.
So let's put our hands together for Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, it is my pleasure now to introduce Sarah Nosu in Applied Modeling and Quantitative Methods with Exploring Cognitive Patterns in Mathematical Problem Solving. Sarah.
In my study, I plan to look inside your minds. Well, not really. Let's take a step back. Some of you might look up at this image right here and think, there's no doubt that many people in this room right now highly dislike math. And it's okay. I, too, at some point, struggled in math. But that's unfortunate because math is everywhere. We can't escape it. But what we can change is the way we approach it. I plan to tackle math education by implementing and manipulating computer interface in hopes of finding a new ways to practice math. One way in which we can grow more confident in math is through practice. So, in hopes of doing that, I will be presenting to students with a group of, I will be presenting students with mathematical questions to see how they are affected by this. And in hopes of doing this, we'll create an environment where students can interactively practice their questions and grow stronger in their targeted subjects. So how did we do this? Although we can't look directly into your minds, we can use eye trackers. In the quest to look into the minds of participants, we took 2 groups of students and asked them a series of math questions. With the purpose of eye trackers, we can look at where the students looked, how long they took to look at each question, and how they scanned their screens. These patterns could help us indicate if asking a question a certain way can affect the ability and accuracy in answering these questions. So, though we haven't delved far enough in our studies to identify definite patterns in the way students answer questions, I remain optimistic about finding differences in the responses to complex logarithmic math questions just like this. So, we're told that our eyes are our windows to our souls, but we're told that our eyes are windows to our souls, but science uses them as their windows to our minds. This is a unique topic that needs further exploration, not just in math, but in how we learn and inquire in general. So whenever you are stumped with a question like this, think about how your eyes scan each section of each math questions and to solve them. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, Sarah, that was so good.
I know.
No, it was so good. I wish I had you to teaching me math, because I looked at that and I felt that fear. And I thought, okay, bed mass. I'm like, do the brackets first. Oh God, I can't do the brackets. What can I do something else? So I wish there were more people like you. So what got you into this? Clearly this doesn't just freak you out like most people.
No, so I and my professor we were looking at why students have trouble in math. So we wanted to look at if changing the patterns and formats in the way we ask questions could affect how they solve each question.
Nice. And other than mathematical things, what else do you like to do?
Take walks. I like to look at flowers and plants as well.
Yeah, no, yeah. And that's kind of nice to take your mind out of this world and look at kind of the other world and back. And thank you so much for doing this. You know, next steps for you. Have you even thought what the next
I do like UX and computer interface designs, so that's my next step, and also like statistical analysis. So that's where I'm heading towards.
That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of fun for you, not for me, because it terrifies me still. But I'm so glad you're doing this. I think we all loved what you had to say. So thank you so much for being here today, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. We have another great presentation coming up. It's Lynn Tran in Environmental and Life Sciences with exploring the relationship between cytokinin and the cytokinin and the ensikstation? Thank you. Ensikstation process in, oh my goodness, Giardia intestinalis. I think I have that right now. So let's hear it for Lynn.
I have a short story to start for you. My friend here was on a camping trip where suddenly he ran out of water. And out of desperation, he drank water from a river nearby his campsite. Unfortunately, he fell sick and was then diagnosed with giardiasis. Giardiasis is a type of diarrheal infection that is also known as beaver fever, and it is caused by a parasite called Giardia intestinalis. Now, maybe not everyone here is familiar with this disease, but around 200 million individuals all around the world are infected every single year. So what really happened when he drank the water? I want you to imagine this parasite as a chicken egg. When it is outside the body, it exists in this egg form, floating around, doing nothing, waiting to be hatched. When it enters the body into the stomach acid would crack this egg open, releasing the infecting form. This infecting form can then swim around, steal nutrients, and at this stage, the infected individuals would experience symptoms like diarrhea, fever, nausea, and malnutrition. The most common way to treat this disease is to take antibiotics, which can actually hurt your healthy natural gut environment while training these parasites to become resistant to the drug. That sounds kind of bad, but what if I tell you there's another way? My research focuses on the transition process from the infecting form to the egg form, and this transition process is very important to the parasite as it allows the parasite to continue spreading the disease to other places. And while studying this process, I found that the presence of this hormone called cytokinin that is known to regulate plant growth, development, and survival has the ability to stop the parasite from changing its form. Now you're probably wondering, how can something that is known as plant hormone mess around with the encystation process of a diarrheal parasite? Well, me too. And that brings me to the present, where I am trying to explore and understand the relationship between these two in hope of finding a new way to fight this disease. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the notes because we asked people to give us little notes about things that we can ask, and bio questions. It says, I have a love-hate relationship with this.
Oh, yeah.
I think we may understand what it is, but tell us what the love-hate relationship is with this project.
Just like generally, well, when I first started like doing a thesis, I didn't want to do anything with chemistry. And this is a little bit too much chemistry for me, but I learned to like just love learning new things and finding that like there's just a really strong connection between biology, chemistry, and just like math and everything, like all tied together. Very nice.
That's cool.
As I'm just learning.
Yeah, no, it's good that you kind of work through it.
Yeah.
And then you have interesting hobbies because it says, what are your hobbies? And it says, I like to collect stationary items. And I'm like, so things that don't move? And then it go, no, i.e. pens and highlighters. So you actually mean stationary, like things from like Staples.
Yeah, like in Toronto, there's a lot of like nice, like cute stationery stores. That's what they call it, and they just have like sticky notes and like pens and highlighters. And I just like go there every like month and just like grab a bunch home.
That is so cool. I've never heard of anyone who collects sticky notes and pens before, so that's really great.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll come in handy when you're doing your research and other things. Thank you so much. Let's put your hands together for Lynn. And now, without further ado, let us welcome Alexander Robertson in Bioenvironmental Monitoring and Assessment with Some Like It Wet. Alexander.
I really don't like cilantro. Some of you are probably familiar with the gene that makes cilantro taste like soap, right? Well, I have it. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk to you about some real freaks of nature, the all-female salamander complex on Pelee Island. We call them unisexuals because there are virtually no males. Because there are no males, these girls need to persist by stealing sperm from two completely different species of salamander. Now, you may be wondering what this has to do with my aversion to cilantro. Well, the way that I get my cilantro gene from either mom or dad, these kleptomaniacs produce babies that have more DNA from one species they steal from than the other. Sometimes it's a 50-50 split, but sometimes it's 60-40 or 75-25. The two species they steal sperm from, smallmouth and blue-spotted salamanders, have different preferences when it comes to habitat. So my thinking is, rather than their genes affecting whether or not they choose to put cilantro on their sandwich, their genes may be affecting where they decide to live. And I'm finding, through measuring the soil moisture used by the unisexuals, that there's definitely a gradient of wet to dry habitat use based on how related they are to one species or the other. The closer they are to smallmouths, the wetter they take their soil. This is important because on Pelee Island, which is an island, the unisexuals vastly outnumber the species that they steal sperm from. And smallmouth salamanders are endangered in Canada. So if unisexuals are using different parts of the same environment as the species they steal from, this could explain how they can coexist. That's because species with similar needs often need to compete for resources. Often these resources are things like food, but sometimes they're things like habitat. And if we can determine why the salamanders can coexist, then we might be able to draw inferences about why other hybrid species of animals, whether or not they can coexist with their parent species or if they need to compete for resources like the salamanders. On top of all this, the salamanders on Pelee Island are mysterious and unique. It's the only place on Earth where this sort of genetic combination in this wacky system is occurring. And maybe someday, if we learn enough about them, we'll be able to answer the true burning ecological question, which is, of course, which salamanders like cilantro? Thank you.
Thanks, Alexander. That's great. So that's a moisture reader there, is that what
Yeah, we use that to measure the soil moisture.
And lots of salamanders. I was reading your notes, and you said that when you're younger, maybe because you watch Kratz Creatures, is this how you perhaps got into the? You said you're a big fan of Zaboomafoo and Kratz Creatures.
Yeah, I watched all those sort of nature shows, and I guess it just stuck with me, and now I'm obsessed with weird little creatures.
But it's not only weird little creatures that you encounter. Didn't you encounter, was it a grizzly or a black bear?
It was a black bear, yeah. I went camping last summer, and we had to pack up, and I went to get my food, and there was a little black bear hanging around our barrel of food, so...
So it's not quite like Zaboomafoo, like that. It's a little scarier.
A little less educational and a little more, horrifying.
Yeah. You heard it here, folks. Bear barrels are important. Put your food in the barrel. Keep it up high. That's important tips. And also, love your local salamanders. Thank you very much, Alexander, for being here. All right, next we have Fan Yon in psychology with Why Am I Being Treated Differently? Bicultural Identity Formation. Fan.
Yeah.
We have two individuals here, a more East Asian looking woman and a more white looking woman. Now, what if I tell you that they both identify themselves as Canadian? Furthermore, they're siblings. They both have an East Asian parent and a white parent. Would you expect them to be treated differently by their relatives in the exact same context? Let's say on a family dinner. Yes, their relatives do. And yes, these women will feel the differences. Now they might wonder, especially for her, why am I being treated differently from my sister? She might go to her parents asking this very question. However, what would the parents respond to that? Because you look different? And this is just one of the examples of what bicultural individuals might experience on a daily basis. Previous research has demonstrated that bicultural individuals are more likely to experience discomfort, threat of racism, and disloyalty because they feel like they have to choose. Parents too also report experiencing struggles with their own conflicting values between themselves. And my research aims to explore these challenges faced by second-generation immigrant young adults coming from an East Asian white family. Young adults aged 18 to 25 who meet the criteria will be invited to do an interview, and the interview questions will be constructed based on 4 key aspects. What cultural gaps do they perceive within the family? What conflicting messages did they receive from the parents? How they socialize with the outside world, and how they modify their identity based on all the information given to them. I expect to see that cultural identity evolves over time, with a stronger affiliation to one culture during youth, and a greater appreciation of being multicultural in adulthood. Hyphenated identities, which means shifting identities across different contexts, are likely to be reported. Tension, stemming from both parents' tension, conflicting messages, and societal tensions due to stereotypes towards their East Asian background, especially to how they look, are likely to contribute significantly to how they culturally identify themselves. And lastly, I want to provide some insights for parents. How to help your children navigate through this whole process as they grow up is the most important questions that we want to ask ourselves. We often choose to cherish the benefits of being multicultural. However, on the other side of the coin, we must also recognize the complexities and struggles of being multicultural as well. Thank you.
Fan, thank you so much. That is,
Thank you.
wow, powerful stuff. I really appreciate you sharing your research with us. A few questions about would you want to go into child psychology? Is that sort of where you're wanting to go, or do you want to do more kind of research-based things moving forward?
I do want to dig deeper in my research because I think it's a really important question, and the question that we often choose to neglect for those like bicultural parents. So yes, maybe I would try to do my research continuously after this.
How old's your sample size, by the way? Like, with these questions, the 4 questions you're giving, is there an age range of people you're giving it to? Is it randomized? How does that work?
Okay, so we try to make it like a qualitative research. So we want to have individuals, like maybe 15 to 20 individuals, and we're going to ask them to do interviews. And they're all going to be like young adults, 18, 25, like I said, right? And because we think that that age range is like the most powerful range that they question themselves, who am I and where do I belong in this world? So that would be the sample size if that's the question.
And will you draw it from students in the Trent community?
Okay, so the plan is we're going to look at like East Asian club or like those bicultural clubs that we have on the campus, and we're going to look through like people who are like, have those like conflicting experiences. So maybe clubs at Trent University, or like maybe psychology students first year, something like that.
That's wonderful. No, it's great that you have that base you can do. And in your spare time, you also do other things. You're in archery and some other sports like
I
that?
love archery.
You love archery?
I love archery. I won a trophy for that.
Oh, you did?
In my undergrad.
Oh,
Yep.
how did you get into it? It's something that seems odd to you. Just happened. You just saw people shooting arrows. And you're like, oh, I could do that.
Oh, I always love it. Actually, I love it because of Hunger Games.
Oh, the real answer comes out.
The real
Nice.
answer comes out. And then there's an archery club in my undergrad, and I was like, oh, I want to try that. So I paid $20, and I just went in and do it. And it's awesome.
That is awesome. I would not want to be in the Hunger Games with you. My picture would be going up there pretty soon, and you'd be like...
That's what my friends tell me as well, but yeah.
Well, it's so great to meet you and
Thank
have you
you.
talk tonight. And let's put your hands together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're moving along, and I'd like you to put your hands together for Dylan James, who's in psychology with Not Just Right, Exploring Interoception and Incompleteness in Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder. Dylan.
You're walking down a sidewalk and you snuff your foot in a crack. Now, everyone knows what they say about stepping on cracks and breaking mothers' backs, and while you know this obviously isn't true, you still spend your next few paces avoiding the upcoming cracks. But why? You step out of the car and you go to shut the door. Now, the door closes, but it doesn't make that crisp thud sound. You probably reshut the car door, don't you? These everyday experiences that many of us can relate to can be understood as compulsive behaviors, and when carried to their extreme, are a key trait in a disorder known as OCD. Now, our traditional understanding of OCD would explain these compulsive behaviors as actions we perform to reduce the fear caused by an obsession. For example, in the classic case of the germaphobe, an individual will spend hours routinely washing their hands, the compulsion, due to the fear that germs will harm them, the obsession. But when we contrast the case of the germaphobe with these experiences I had you consider earlier, you may notice something critically different. When you paced your steps or reshut the car door, you probably wouldn't say that you were doing these things because you were afraid of anything, right? Well, a growing body of evidence supports a second major dimension underlying these obsessive-compulsive behaviors, known as incompleteness. Incompleteness is characterized not by fear, but by a discomfort and a need to correct feelings of not just rightness. The missing thud when you first shut that car door creates a not just right feeling, which then triggers the urge to reshut the car door. Research shows that some of the most severe and untreatable cases in OCD are those on this incompleteness dimension. And one of the reasons behind this is that the current treatment for OCD involves addressing the fear behind the compulsion. So when an individual presents high on incompleteness, whose compulsion is not based in fear, they just don't respond to the treatment. The question therefore becomes, what's causing this sense of incompleteness that's then driving these compulsions? One mechanism that may help explain this are deficits in interoceptive awareness. Put simply, interoceptive awareness is our ability to detect bodily sensations, the thoughts and feelings we have about these sensations. This seems particularly applicable given the sensory-based nature that characterizes incompleteness and that not just right feeling. Yet no research has evaluated this relationship. Using a series of assessments that include an in-lab exposure task that actually induces that not just right feeling, my research will assess how deficits in interoceptive awareness can explain incompleteness. Answers to these questions will help you know why you reshut that car door, or why you pace your steps down the sidewalk. But at its critical level, we'll begin to understand the phenomena that's driving some of the most severe and untreatable cases in OCD. Thank you.
That was great. I'm just going through. You have lots of fun facts that you've given. There's 2 pages of fun facts here. But you really practice. No, you practice what you preach. Like you have lots of work in clinical settings and all sorts of. So do you want to talk a little bit about your background and how you got to your thesis, what you're working on now?
Sure. Yeah. So I also work as a mental health worker, primarily with youths. I think it's really important that when you're spending the day-to-day as a grad student, you're looking at data sets and sheets with just a bunch of numbers that are supposed to, indicate what's going on with the human's behavior. But if you're not interacting with the actual individual, it's hard to get that real sense of the difference that you're supposed to be making. So it's really easy to receive, truthfully, public funding for research that's really important. But if you fail to connect that importance to the actual individual that you're supposed to be treating, that's where I think that mental health worker really helps.
Well, and I love how you have that perspective and you can bring that into your research, and that's so important. Then you bring it out and diffuse it to everyone else here. Talking about incompleteness, you have issues with chips, with all dressed chips. Like how does that? Tell us more about what happens when you eat all dressed chips.
Okay, so just so everyone's aware, we had to fill out these forms, and there was this daunting question that says "fun fact about you." It sounds simple, but it's one of the most difficult questions I think to answer. So yeah, I preach, especially with this mental health work, I preach self-discipline, and that's one thing that I'm really interested in for the clients. But when it comes to a bag of chips, I just have absolutely none of it. So
and that's okay. You can
yeah.
study something and you can still say, yeah, no, I have chips. That's my
Yeah.
Achilles heel.
But I wouldn't say it's incompleteness because I actually am afraid of what I do with a bag of chips.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's put your hands together for Dylan. Thank you. All right. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Megan Heft in Environmental and Life Sciences with Hot Dads, How Male Tree Swallows Respond to Heat. Megan.
Picture yourself on a hot summer day. High heat, high humidity, no wind. chances are you might find yourself with a cold beverage, lounging in the shade, or staying inside with the AC turned all the way up. For most of us, I'd wager that the last thing we'd possibly consider would be running a marathon. Yet marathon-like feats are a necessity for populations of wild birds, like tree swallows, especially during the breeding season. During this time, both parents raise and care for nestlings, spending approximately 60% of daytime activity in flight, exercising and foraging for insects to feed nestlings. That's where our research comes in. Heat limitations. That is, birds may limit the amount that they exercise based on their risk of overheating. Research on heat limitations is critical for our understanding of how birds will cope with heat stress from climate change. Current research on breeding birds has shown that female parents are limited by heat. However, this has not been well tested with males. So, to determine if males are also limited by heat, we performed a series of experimental trimming manipulations. That is, we shaved some birds. Now, to clarify, we only shaved a small patch of feathers from the bellies of birds, and all feathers regrew. To track how much each bird exercised, we implanted small tags which recorded any time that the bird entered or exited the nest box, along with their identification. We anticipated that shaving would allow males to exercise more and dissipate heat, much like you or I taking off a sweater when we're hot. As a result, we expected shaved males would increase their exercise, better provide to nestlings, and raise larger nestlings. Surprisingly, we found that all males exercised at a similar rate, even when shaved, and raised nestlings of a similar peak body mass. At high temperatures, all males reduced activity, which suggests they're still limited by the risk of overheating. But why did shaved males not step up and provide better care? Well, it's hard to say. Since our study was focused on activity at the nest box, it's hard to determine exactly what happened outside of the nest box. It's possible that shaved males exercised more, but opted to feed themselves instead of their nestlings. So to better answer this question, we'll be using GPS tags to monitor activity outside of the nest box to determine if males are self-feeding or providing care in other forms, like nest defense. But as it stands for now, hot dads don't always make for the best of parents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was great. Now I'm going to ask the question everybody's thinking. How do you shave a bird?
Very carefully. Just using scissors and then just trimming with a template.
Are they awake the whole time and really mad at you, or how does this work?
They are awake. We keep it brief. All of our research is done within protocols for animal care, so we're making sure that we're keeping in mind bird stress and handling. So all the feathers grew back. It's not a permanent
That's good.
challenge.
They
Yeah.
come in gray or some another color. They came
Yeah.
back. Okay, fair enough. No, that's great. You go through Megan's kind of fun facts, and it doesn't surprise. I know you well, and I know how you live and breathe birds, and you're a great teacher of ornithology and that. And so I'm going through here saying, bird watching, falconry, all these types of things. And then it says, I worked as a poultry judge in the Midwestern U.S. What's a poultry judge?
So have you seen a dog show perhaps on? Yeah. So it's equivalent, but with poultry. So ducks, chickens, geese, you name it. And we have the standard of perfection in which we grade each bird on 100 points. And it comes down to conformation, color, and feathers, and we go through.
So you can have a blue ribbon duck or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's people will spend thousands of dollars on these birds. So.
Wow, you learned some. This is great. This is why 3 minutes is just not enough, because there's so much to your life here that you could talk about. Do you miss being a poultry judge?
I still am a
You're
poultry
still in the
judge,
game. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
yeah.
I'm glad you could spend some time with us
when
tonight.
I'm not out in the field, I'm back home doing some work. Yeah.
Doing poultry judging.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
There we go. Well, thank you. Let's put your hands together for Megan. Thank you so much. All right. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Galère Prévost in Environmental and Life Sciences with cytokinin inhibition of frog virus 3 replication.
Typically, when you ask people what their favorite animals are, very few people are quick to jump up and say frogs. And that's completely understandable. You know, they're slimy, they're gross, they make these really weird sounds. But because of this project, I've become a lot more tolerant of them. And I'm gonna explain why by first talking about cytokinins. Now, these are signaling molecules that we thought only existed in plants for a very long time, but over the years, more research was done. We now know that they exist in all kingdoms of life. This is exciting news, right? They exist in our systems, but that excitement kind of stops short when you realize we don't know much about cytokinins outside of plants, which leads me to talking about frogs, or more specifically, frog virus 3, a virus that primarily infects frogs. Now, frog virus 3 is responsible for roughly 90% of amphibian population decline across North America. Because of this impact, studies have been done extensively on this virus, making it a model virus to study, and it's a virus that we study in our lab. So we're talking about cytokinins again, or thinking about them again, and we're wondering, what effect would cytokinins have on frog virus 3? Because we know in plants, they're responsible for mediating stress and a part of immune defense. So what I did was I had a plate of cells, and I infected those cells with frog virus 3 and added cytokinins on there. After a couple of days, I observed that there was a decrease in viral activity compared to cells that were infected with frog virus 3 alone. This is amazing, right? This is showing us that cytokinins have the ability to act as an antiviral agent. What's even more exciting is recently, other studies have come out showing that cytokinins can do this with COVID-19. I know what everybody's thinking. Glaire's coming to save the frogs. She's coming to save the world. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. I'm not. Because this project is not about saving the frogs or anybody. It's about these cytokinins. They're the star of the show. The fact that we knew so little about them, and we're now beginning to learn a lot about them, is extremely exciting. I'm super excited about cytokinins. Learning more about them, learning more about how they react with viruses, and even learning more about viruses in general, learning the mechanism of action behind how they're able to do all of this. And so I hope I've made you guys a little bit more excited about cytokinins before you came in here. And I also hope I've made you a little bit more tolerant towards frogs as well. But don't worry, I won't hold anything against you if they're still not your favorite animals, because trust me, they're still not my favorite as well. Thank you.
That's great. It's so fascinating. So when did you find out about cytokinins the first time? Was that before Trent, or did you, in your research here, find out about it?
Yeah, here at Trent is when I found out about cytokinins.
Because you're very stoked and excited about it, and I'm excited about it too. And so this is a kind of a new, like a epiphanic moment. This is a new discovery for you. And
yeah.
So what's the next steps? Where do you think this might take you?
Well, we're hoping, like I said, to learn more about cytokinins, like the mechanism of action behind how they're able to do all these amazing things. So yeah, and yeah, that's basically
That's
it.
exciting. Now, when you're not in the lab all the time, and it's important to get out of the lab. That is a huge thing. When you're not in the lab, you're dancing. Am I right, or?
Yeah, I am.
Tell us more about your dance. You're on a special dance. You're on the TaxU dance team, aren't you? Or?
Yes, I am on the TaxU dance team. I joined, I think, in 2019, if I remember correctly. But yeah, we perform at different events at Trent University.
That's great. We'll have to you have to somehow bring in like dancing and cytokinins and frogs and things like that. That's the next step, right?
Maybe.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. Copyright, Mikey. And when that frog dance thing happens, you know you're going to go to LAC, and I'm sure they have some money for you for that. Anyways, great to see you. Let's put your hands together. Okay, we're in the home stretch, folks. I'd like to introduce Azra Idrish Patel in psychology with Beauty Battles, Navigating Body Image and Family Conflict in South Asian Communities. Azra.
Like my parents would be like, we'd be driving to the grocery store and she'd go off and I'm like, Mom, like every conversation would have a serious conversation and an end on a body image thing. This quote reflects an experience that is a regular occurrence for many South Asian adolescents. Over 80% of South Asian adolescents report experiencing body dissatisfaction. For many of these adolescents, body image is not just a personal issue, it is a family discussion, an expectation, or even a source of conflict. Parents often impose beauty expectations influenced by cultural traditions, historical influences, and colonization, such as the pressure to be thin, but not too thin, or even fair skinned. For some adolescents, these beauty expectations can create tensions that remain unspoken. But for others, the lack of understanding from family can manifest in repeated arguments, passive aggressive comments, or avoidance, causing conflict between adolescents and their parents. So, this is where my research comes in. I want to examine the relationship between body image perception and conflict emergence in South Asian families. Specifically, I want to examine how negative body image perception impacts how conflicts emerge between adolescents and their parents. Additionally, in South Asian families where harmony and respect for elders are emphasized, communication is often indirect and hierarchical. These communication norms shape how body image concerns are discussed or silenced, possibly influencing how conflicts unfold within the family. So, I will also examine how different styles of communication impact this relationship between body image perception and conflict emergence. For example, does an unhealthy communication style, one that dismisses concerns or avoids difficult conversations, make conflicts worse? Or can open, supportive dialogue reduce tensions and promote healthier body image perceptions? By shifting this conversation, acknowledging these struggles among the South Asian communities, we can begin to break cycles of negative body image perception and unhealthy conflict patterns, ultimately encouraging healthier family relationships and self-perceptions for future generations. Also, I hope that my research will bring more understanding and awareness so that not every conversation between an adolescent and their parent ends on a body image thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Azra. That was so moving and important research. Thank you for sharing that with us. Going through your bio, you're such a multifaceted person, and this is what I love about this competition. You get to see their research in 3 minutes, but you also get to dig into who they are, and you ride horses. That's something do you do that locally? Do you have stables that you go very nearby?
So I come from the Durham region, so I go in Ajax. I found a really good horse barn with a really great trainer. So I started riding about a year ago, and it's been the best thing that I've ever done. So yeah.
That's great, and such a great way to break. It's something totally different. You can focus, and you have the whole idea of being with the horse, but you also are very reflective in your practice as well, not only your academic practice, but you have 2 books coming out. Could you tell us a little bit about the 2 books that you're publishing?
Definitely. So the first book is my poetry book, which I write about life as a neurodivergent person through my lens. And I'm very excited. I'm hoping that every audience member will have that book in their hands one day. And the second book is a children's book. It's about a child and a monkey going on a fruit adventure, and it talks a lot about the taste of fruits, the senses, so that children can learn about those different aspects. And I'm also hoping that if you guys have children, all of your children have these books one day. And yes, I'm very excited.
That's amazing, and I hope you have a website where we can come and check. Soon, there will be a website. You heard it here. So thank you so much. Let's put your hands together. Thank you. And next, we have Oscar Schiller in history with the Trent Severn Waterway, Drowned Lands and Shifting Lifeways. Oscar.
In 1833, the legislature of Upper Canada authorized improvements to the waterways of the Newcastle district. This is the first line in Parks Canada's Bob Cajun plaque regarding the Trent Severn Waterway, and the word improvements speaks to the narrative that Canadians tell about the Trent Severn along with similar projects, a narrative which presented the waterway as an object of national greater good. But who really benefited? In my thesis, I challenged this concept of seeing its construction solely as an improvement, I've consulted oral histories, government reports, and newspaper articles from 1890 to 1930 to demonstrate that the plaque of Bob Cajun is part of a long-standing narrative that we should question, one that reinforces settler colonial myths of progress. Sorry. The waterway's construction upended the natural environment. Native flora and fauna that were important food sources for Anishinaabe and rural settler populations all but disappeared from the watershed. Fluctuating water levels with rapid artificial changes killed hundreds of fish at a time, and the raised water levels in many lakes drowned swaths of Menomin, a traditional indigenous food source. And amidst this upheaval, the Trent Waterway Development Association lobbied in the 1920s to introduce walleye to promote the growing tourism industry. They claimed that walleye would help draw in wealthy sports fishermen. Now, in some parts it worked. Tourists and fishermen loved the walleye, hailing their introduction a success. But for many, it was not. Already having lost other important food sources, the walleye ate another one, lake herring, into disappearance. In the oral histories, settlers and Anishinaabe communities lamented the loss of the lake herring, a fish they had once caught in abundance, cured, and eaten all winter long. On top of this loss, the government introduced strict conservation laws for the walleye, meaning that they could not be a replacement food source. The message was clear. The waterway was not for those who depended on it for food, it was for recreation. So when Parks Canada represents the Trent Severn Waterway as an improvement to the landscape, it is continuing a narrative embedded in settler colonial ideas of progress. But who really benefits? In the case of the Trent Severn, as it is for many places across Canada, it was wealthy settlers. My thesis challenges us to reconsider the stories that we tell about environmental improvements and to question what is left out of the historical plaque. Who bears the sacrifices of progress? Thank you.
Right. That was really great, Oscar. Thank you so much. I'm just it says here you're from Montreal originally, so this perhaps kind of influenced you. You went to Cégep and you really got hooked on history. That's where it started, right? And,
yeah, and also just like living on an island in the middle of this like important seaway, you know, like you kind of realize how dependent we are on it when bridges get shut down and stuff. So.
And I really love what you said because, you know, when you have plaques, of course, you have very little time to say your message, and sometimes instead of saying things like it was perceived as improvement or some people believed it to be improvement, it's just improvement, which paints a horrible swath over a lot of things. And so what do you think is the next step with this for you in this research? Where would you like to go?
Well, so I'd really like to work in heritage for a bit before going on to a PhD, like big maybe. Just because I think heritage and public history, the way that we present history, the way that we teach history is kind of such a fundamental part of history, right? It kind of helps define like how we view things, and I feel like it's, you know, often it's the cause for a lot of problems, but it can also fix a lot of problems.
No, I totally agree, and I think the types of sensitivities you're gaining here will make you a great public historian because you're already one step ahead, already questioning what the narrative is and maybe creating a newer, more nuanced narrative. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that narrative to us tonight. Thanks. Let's hear it again for Oscar. All right. It is my pleasure to introduce Stephanie Altman in anthropology with Trees and Bushes and Shrubs. Oh my! Traditional ecological knowledge in north central Belize. Stephanie.
If I asked you to name as many unique plant species as you can, how many could you say? Could you then tell me all the medicinal, nutritional, and construction-based uses they have? Nowadays, a lot of us aren't as familiar with the plant world around us as we were in the past. Maybe we can name our favorite tree or flower or the veggies in our garden, but the ability to walk into the forest and name the various plants and their uses is being lost. The elders of Indian Church Village in Belize have maintained this knowledge about their local environment. But, like here in Canada, it's no longer being passed down through the generations, resulting in a loss of unimaginable amounts of information. Something that is being passed down, however, is a strong emotional connection to the environment, a love and passion for the natural world that has the potential to be the driving factor behind the revitalization of the forest. Since 1994, Belize has seen vast amounts of deforestation, resulting in the loss of wildlife habitat and unique local ecosystems. My project aims to combine the knowledge of these elders with the passion the community has for the environment to create community-focused solutions for reforestation. This past summer, I traveled to Indian Church Village in Belize to conduct interviews with elders in order to collect their traditional ecological knowledge before it is lost. During my interviews, elders shared with me a wealth of information, such as the healing powers of Chichi Pinsay or the versatility of working with mahogany. 121. This is the number of unique plant species elders can identify in their environment. 121, this is the number of potential losses we'll have if we don't collect this information now. Something that stood out to me when working with this community was that people always shared their love of the forest. One participant said, "For me, my heart hurts when I see the forest is missing. My heart hurts." This was the sentiment shared over and over again, and it answered a really important question. Do people care? Do people have the desire to create change? And the answer is yes. Now that we've collected this knowledge and we know that people's motivation lies behind their love of the forest, we can begin applying this information to projects that focus on more sustainable agriculture and reforestation, projects that put the voice of the community at their center. The elders of Indian Church Village in Belize want to see a future where their children and grandchildren can see the forest how they once did. Their emotional connection is what's needed to make this happen. With this and their knowledge, we can begin to replant the trees, bring back the animals, and create a world a little better and a little greener for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for your powerful talk. That is so great and so rich, and you bring such great understanding to us about the situation in Belize. But for you, Belize is something that you came to at Trent University a little earlier in your life.
Yes, I did. I did my undergrad in archaeology, and I actually got the opportunity to travel to Belize in 2022 to do an archaeological dig on a Maya site, which was really, really cool. So I was really happy that I was able to go back again to that same community and kind of work with them in a different perspective. So instead, talking to the current community rather than just looking at the past.
Yeah, so it's sort of kind of like different types of anthropology. Went from archaeology to more kind of like cultural anthropology.
Exactly.
That is so exciting,
Yeah.
and you can do that at Trent, which is very exciting as well.
Yes.
Little plug for Trent, why not? You also were a scouter. You're in Scouts Canada, and you're a
Yes.
spokesperson for Scouts Canada, too.
Yes, I was a spokesperson for Scouts Canada when I was younger. I was able to write journal articles and do TV interviews. It was a really great opportunity for me. I love Scouts. It got me interested in the outdoors. It brought me some of my best friends. It's just a really amazing program. So I highly recommend it.
That's great.
anyone-
Well, I'm going to do this because
Yes, with the left hand.
with the left hand, because that's
Yeah.
how Scouters do it. Thank you. Put your hands together for Stephanie. Well, Stephanie was the penultimate presentation of the evening, and now we're going to have the final presentation. So last but not least, we have Arif Dayed Azam in public text with You're Playing It Wrong, Narrative Structure and the Illusion of Agency in Video Games. Arif.
In the 2010 video game Halo Reach, we, the players, are given control of the genetically modified super soldier known as Noble 6 in his mission to fight off an alien incursion. In the game, we complete a series of objectives in order to progress through the narrative. It isn't until the very end of the game, after completing every other objective, where we find Noble 6 in a dire situation, alone, surrounded by enemies, the only task given to us being to survive. Spoiler alert, we don't. Regardless of how the player approaches this situation, there is no scenario in which Noble 6 survives. Here, the player has no control over how the story unfolds. The player must fail. But why? Well, simply because the narrative demands it. This is one of many examples of video games seemingly taking away player agency that led me to ask, what does the narrativization of video games do to player agency? And the way that we think about agency. This is especially important today, given that we live in this growing culture of games being presented as giving players unparalleled freedom and control. My research interrogates the understandings we have of agency in the context of video games and what that even means for players. As an example, author James Newman suggests that regardless of how creative, explorative, or unexpected a player's performance in a game may be, they are always bound by the rules of the game. And I would add that a narrative element on top of that further affects player control by introducing forced outcomes and periods of passivity where we merely observe events unfold before us. Here, players don't have agency in the sense of being able to exercise their own autonomy within the game. Rather, they have agency through an agent, through a surrogate like Noble Six, who makes predetermined choices which have predetermined outcomes. This creates an illusion of agency. Where it gets really interesting, however, is that there have been many cases of video game developers making changes to their games, to their narratives, based on player feedback and critique, even after a game's release. Would it be fair then to argue that that is an example of player agency for themselves and not through a surrogate, despite the fact that it takes place outside of the game? Because ultimately, it still impacts the play experience within the game. These are just some of the many ideas I'm considering with my research as I explore agency and narrative. But if there's one thing I have taken away, it is that the narrativization of video games have made situations like those with Noble Six that much more common. And it begs the question, just what kind of agency do we as players have if our choices don't matter up until the point, if our choices only matter up until the point the game decides we don't have any choice? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Taking us to the next level, so to speak, with video games and where agency actually goes in. I had to pull up the notes here because I said fun facts. It's like, I like to make music. I like to play video games. I like to wallow in existential dread. And like, I guess that's fun.
Don't we all?
But we're going to put that one aside for a moment and go to the fun fact that you're an amateur Foley artist. What? Huh? Tell us more about that.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an amateur Foley artist just yet. I'm learning. That's one of the things I like to do as a hobby. I record and make music, and I want to get into game development. I started by thinking I could write for games, but then I realized that's not something that I really do a lot of. I mean, I like reading people's writing, but I don't have a lot of experience in writing it myself. But when I tried making music, I actually had a friend ask me if I could make some sound effects for him, and then I went ahead and did it, and then we won third place at a game jam. So like, oh, maybe I should do this instead.
No, that's really cool. And Foley is like when you take things like peanut shells and you make it sound like you're crunching on bones or things like that. Do you experiment with different types of sound effects?
Yep. One time, my friend and I, we were just recording random sounds, and he blew a raspberry into the mic, and then I plugged it into my program, and then I just, fiddled with it, made it really slow, and then we turned it into this animalistic growl that sounded like an alien that wanted to throw up. It was, I don't know, we didn't do anything with it, but I have it in my portfolio, or in my...
Hey, there's worse ways to have fun on a Saturday night, so I think that's kind of cool. And you said you like grilled cheese sandwiches with mayo instead of butter.
Yes.
So
I caught a lot of flack for that from my roommates. Last year I had a roommate who did like mayo, and therefore I had a companion then. You know, the house was divided. It was me and him versus the other two, but then now he left, so I'm alone and I'm scared.
Okay. Well, there's so many fun facts. I'm just going to give one last one here. You put googly eyes and name every one of your hats, your beanies.
Yep, this one's Jeff. I have at least 12 more.
Okay, well, you know, it's a hobby and it's fun to get out once in a while, and I think I can't think of a better way. So thank you and Jeff for being here tonight. Let's put your hands together. Well, folks, and that's it. I would like it's harder than it looks. So let's put your hands together for all of our contestants. Again, what an amazing job you've all done tonight. That was pretty exciting, and I'm very anxious to find out who the grand winners are. But of course, everybody did such a great job. I feel for the judges, because I think it's a difficult job for the judges. So let's put the hands together first for our great judges and the job they've done. Let's put your hands together for our contestants one more time. Incredible work, everyone. And you guys in the audience, you're pretty great too. So let's put your hands together for yourselves as well. Thank you for being here. I mentioned a bit earlier that, the motto of Trent University and Trail College, being a founding college, is Nunc cognosco ex parte, meaning now I know in part. And I mentioned earlier that's about not being a know-it-all, but being a proud know-it-some, you know, but it's also about humility. And I think one of the key things about higher education, something that often gets missed in some places, is the idea of humility, is that we do this with gratitude, we do this for ourselves, but more importantly, we do this to help others. And I think you guys are all on that page, and I'm so proud that you're members of our colleges, in particular Montreal College, but of all the colleges, and you know, believe in the idea of humility in education. And I would like to say a few thank yous, because I think this could not have happened. I know this could not have happened without the work of so many people. So again, our judges, thank you so much for this. We have generous prizes, and it's because we have generous donations from different parts of the university, including the School of Graduate Studies, Craig Prinetti, Suzanne Bailey. Thank you for everything, the School of Graduate Studies. Dr. Holger Hintelman, and of course the Office of Research, thank you for your support. The Trent Graduate Students Association, thank you. The students, your student association helped support this too, so thanks to you guys. Trent Alumni and Engagement Services, if you got a water bottle that says Trent Alumni on it, thank an Alumni Engagement Service person because they gave it to you. Thanks, Trent Alumni Services. The staff of Market Hall, including Patricia, who's our tech tonight, thank you so much for making this a great event. Michael Hercombe, who is also the chair of Market, he liked the place so much, he became the chair of it, of Market Hall, but he's our videographer tonight. Thank you, Michael, for doing all you do. And I could go on, but I won't, but I will say some very important people. Erin Davidson, Megan Kelly, Kate Higgins, Natalie Nelson, Kyle Sherrod, Sumiko Polanco, Erin Stewart-Eves, and Marisha Lamont. Thank you so much for being here and doing what you're doing. These are the ushers, everybody who made this all happen, made it, you know, wrote the notes, everything that, thank you so much. The big person behind this is Dr. Sue Beckwith. Sue, come on up here, Sue. Let's hear it for Sue. From day one, she's the person that puts out the announcements, helps train people into how to do this, has the special sessions and the workshops, puts it all together. Sue, thank you so much for your work on this. All right. As I said, humility is important, but now it's time to brag. Okay, here come the prizes. So I'd like to ask James Lajoie to come up to present the TGSA third place prize. James.
And the third place prize from the Trent Graduate Student Association goes to Oscar Seiler.
Oh, open it up. It looks black. Like you could. There you are. Great. Thank you. Next, for the Catherine Parr Trail, second place prize. Could Peg McCracken come up? Peg.
The second place Catherine Parr Trail College prize, I'm pleased to say, goes to Stephanie Altman.
All right, we're getting there. All this money is just flying off the shelves. 500 here, 500 there. It's time for another 500. This is the one that you got to decide. So could Dr. Holger Hintelman come up from the Office of Research to give the Office of Research Audience Choice Prize? Oh, there you are. Holger.
Wow. What an amazing lineup of speakers and very well, extremely well executed presentations. So it was extremely difficult also for us, I guess, to judge. So I'm really curious now to see who The audience choice winner is who you picked as the favorite. So the audience choice award goes to Dylan James.
All right, this is it. The big one. This is the School of Graduates first place prize, which is money and also includes an all expenses paid to a trip to Tirana. So could Sasha come up from the School of Graduate Studies to present this award? Sasha.
Thank you, Michael. On behalf of the Deans of Graduate Studies and the School of Graduate Studies, we're very excited to announce our first place winner. And our first place winner is Dylan James. Congratulations, Dylan. All right. Here you are. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's great. Good job. Good job. Wow, and there you go. What an exciting evening. And I love it how, the audience was on board with what the other judges were saying too. What a great night. But again, everyone gave an incredible presentation. So let's put your hands together one more time for our contestants. And I think it's time for everybody to share the stage. So could all of our contestants come up? We're going to give you all our certificate, and then you can get a nice picture from families and friends suitable for framing. You will all be standing here, and we can get a picture, and then the night will be done. So please come on up, everyone. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Drive safe. Have a great long weekend, and see you back here next year. Thank you.